Welcome to SATV News. This is Anaf Hussain with our headlines. EU election observers stress inclusive participation in Bangladesh polls, credible turnout of voters for exercising democratic rights. EC hearing restores candidacies of most petitioners. Jatiyo Party's Jinnah and Jamaat Azadi return to race. Stray bullet from Myanmar kills 7-year-old girl in Waikong Union Teknaf, says police. Now in details. Chief Observer of the European Union Election Observation Mission, Evers Ajax, on Sunday said these historic elections, referendums and national election will be crucial to bolster democratic institutions throughout the ballot box and laid emphasis on participation of all social groups and credible turnout of voters for exercising their democratic rights. Hence, it will be important that the polls are conducted peacefully and in a credible and transparent manner. My hope is that our work here will also contribute to public confidence and trust in electoral process, he told reporters during a media briefing at a city hotel. 2 days after the election on February 14, the EOM will issue a preliminary statement and hold a press conference in Dhaka. A comprehensive final report including recommendations for future election will be published and presented to the authorities some 2 months later. In response to an invitation by the authorities of Bangladesh, the European Union has deployed an election observation mission for the parliamentary elections scheduled for February 12. A majority of aspirants who challenged the rejection of their nomination papers have regained eligibility to contest the 13th parliamentary election, as the Election Commission adopted a lenient approach towards minor errors and unintentional mistakes found in nomination documents and affidavits ahead of February 12 polls. The EC that acts as the Electoral Appeal Tribunal gave the candidacy back to 51 aspirants out of 67 petitioners heard on Saturday, while 27 aspirants out of 35 petitioners heard on Monday till 1 p.m. The commission, chaired by Chief Election Commissioner AMM Nasiruddin, accepted a total of 52 petitions, rejected 15 others and kept the rest 3 pending. With the EC's decision, 51 candidates were reinstated in the electoral race and 1 candidate lost candidacy as the petition filed against the acceptance of his nomination paper was granted by the Electoral Appeal Tribunal. On Sunday, the EC heard a total of 35 petitions till 1 p.m. Among these, 27 petitions were accepted, 7 others were turned down and the rest 3 were kept pending. The Election Commission will hear some 70 petitions on Sunday. Jamaat aspirants for Jamalpur 3 Mujibur Rahman Azadi and former MP and Jatiyo Party aspirant for Bogura 2, Shariful Islam Jinnah, regained their candidacy back on Sunday. The Election Commission will hear and dispose all the petitions by January 18. The Election Commission began a coordination meeting today on law and order activities with the armed forces and 16 security agencies ahead of the upcoming referendum and the national election schedule for 12 February. The meeting took place from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. at the EC Secretariat's conference room at the Nirbachan Bhavan in Agarga, Dhaka. Election Commissioner Brigadier General Retired Abul Fazal MD Sanaullah presided over the meeting in presence of the EC Secretary. However, no press briefing was held regarding the outcomes of the meeting. Meeting sources said to maintain peace and order during the Election Commission has formed several committees involving coordination cells, vigilance teams, monitoring teams and returning officers. In the previous law and order meeting, various directives were issued, including the recovery of illegal weapons and the arrest of criminals. The High Court has issued a rule asking why the candidacy of contestants from the Jatiyo Party, GM Kader faction and the National Democratic Front, NDF-led Anisul Islam Mahmood and Jatiyo Party Manju faction chairman Anwar Hossain Manju should not be declared illegal in the 13th national parliamentary election. The rule was issued today by a High Court bench led by Justice Razik Al Jalil. Barrister A.S.M. Shahriar Kabir represented the writ petitioner during the hearing. Earlier last week, a writ petition was filed seeking directives to bar candidates from the Jatiyo Party GM Kader faction and the NDF from contesting the election. The petition was filed by Abdullah Al Mahmoud, a resident of Bhola and a participant in the July uprising. The respondents include the Law Secretary, the Home Secretary, the Cabinet Secretary, the Chief Election Commissioner and the Election Commission Secretary. According to petition, the GM Kader-led faction of the Jatiyo Party has announced candidates in 240 constituencies. The final list was unveiled last year on 26 December, the Lakeshore Hotel in Gulshan by Party Secretary General Shamim Haidar Patwari. A man involved in Jamaat-e-Islami politics was shot dead and another sustained gunshot wounds when unidentified assailants opened fire in Fatickchari Upazila of Chattogram last night. Police and local sources said the deceased was Muhammad Jamaluddin from Shahnagar village. Locals said he was once an Islami Chhatra Shivir activist and later became a Jamaat activist. The injured Nasiruddin, a resident of the same village, was admitted to Chattogram Medical College Hospital. Additional Superintendent of Police Kaji MD Tarek Aziz said preliminary information suggests the two were returning to their village on a motorcycle when the attacker targeted them near their home. The assailants also arrived on a motorcycle and fled the scene after the shooting, he said, adding that police are investigating the incident and working to identify those involved. A Bangladeshi child was killed and several others were injured, reportedly after stray bullets fired during clashes inside Myanmar spilled into Bangladesh in Teknaf, Coxbazar. Bapi Khan's report. The name of the bullet-injured child is Sultana Afnan. She is 8 years old. Afnan is a third-grade student of Haji Muhammad Hossain Government Primary School in the area. The incident occurred at 9:30 a.m. on Sunday. Family members said that she was shot in the head while playing in the yard of her house in the morning. She was immediately sent to the hospital. In this incident, the locals have blocked the Teknaf-Coxbazar highway. Upon receiving the news, members of the law enforcement agencies including the BGB, police, army arrived and tried to calm the agitated crowd. At the same time, former local MP Shahjahan Chaudhary immediately came and tried to convince the people and clear the road blockade. In this incident, a BGB vehicle was vandalized by the angry crowd. Locals are suffering from insecurity due to the sound of heavy weapons shelling from Saturday evening to Sunday morning. A series of bomb explosions and hundreds of rounds of shelling occurred near the Hoi Quing border. Locals said that the houses on the other side were shaken. According to the locals, the shelling and mortar attacks are damaging shrimp enclosure and farmland in the border area. Women and children are crying in fear. People are afraid to leave their homes during the day as well as night. On today's Teknaf border, where the sound of gunfire and the faces of people tired of the fight for life are only terror, the death of Sultana Afnan will remain a stigma. The sacrifice of her small life has raised a question: when will this unrest end? When ordinary people, especially women and children, are trembling in fear, the international community and the government should fulfill their responsibilities, establishing peace, saving lives. There is no justification for this massacre, no consideration. This oppression of ordinary people should end. The world is asking today, when will this inhumanity actually end? 7 workers suffered burn injuries in a boiler explosion at cement factory in Naranganj, Bandar Upazila yesterday evening. The injured were identified as Ferdoz 38, Rakib 25, Manju 28, Tarek 21, Babul 30, Khorshid 28 and Habib 35. They were admitted to the National Institute of Burn and Plastic Injury in Dhaka. The accident occurred around 8 p.m. according to colleagues and the victims. The boiler exploded suddenly while they were working inside the factory, leaving those nearby injured. They were immediately rescued and rushed to the hospital. Dr. Shaun bin Rahman, resident surgeon at the emergency department of the institute, said the victims suffered up to 14% burns. Of them, 3 have suffered damage to their respiratory tracts, he added. Panchagor's Tetulia recorded a minimum temperature of 7.3 degrees Celsius at 9 a.m. today, as a cold wave continued to sweep across northern Bangladesh. Wind speeds ranged between 8 to 10 kilometers per hour, while humidity stood at 90%, said Jitendranath Roy, acting officer of the Tetulia Weather Observatory. The district has been experiencing a mild to moderate cold wave since Tuesday, with temperatures ranging between 6.8 degrees Celsius and 9.5 degrees Celsius, according to the observatory. Elsewhere in the northern region, temperatures were recorded at 8.1 degrees Celsius in Thakurga, 8.1 degrees Celsius in Nilphamari's Dimla, 9.8 degrees Celsius in Kurigram's Rajarhat, 10.2 degrees Celsius in Rangpur, and 9.6 degrees Celsius in Dinajpur. The prolonged cold spell has disrupted daily life and intensified suffering, particularly among low-income people who remain outdoors for most of the day. Viewers, we are taking a short break. Stay with us.
সারা দেশে লাখো মানুষের কঠোর কর্মতৎপরতা ও নিষ্ঠায় এসএ পরিবহন পার্সেল অ্যান্ড কুরিয়ার সার্ভিস এখন 16 কোটি মানুষের হাতের নাগালে। দীর্ঘ 30 বছর ধরে বিশ্বস্ততা ও দ্রুততার সাথে সেবা দেওয়ায় গ্রাহক সেবায় এখন শীর্ষে। বাংলাদেশে গ্রাহক সেবার সাফল্যের পর এসএ পরিবহন পার্সেল অ্যান্ড কুরিয়ার সার্ভিস এখন বিশ্ব বাণিজ্য কেন্দ্র সিঙ্গাপুরে। আপনার যে কোনো পণ্য সিঙ্গাপুর থেকে বাংলাদেশে বুকিং এর জন্য যোগাযোগ করুন। এসএ পরিবহন প্রাইভেট লিমিটেড, লজিস্টিক্স পার্সেল অ্যান্ড কুরিয়ার সার্ভিস, 22 রবার্টস লেন, সিঙ্গাপুর 218302। ফোন 0065 629 24900।
Welcome back. You're watching SATV News. News from abroad. US President Donald Trump signed an executive order aimed at blocking courts or creditors from impounding revenue tied to the sale of Venezuelan oil held in Treasury accounts, the White House said on Saturday. The emergency order said the revenue held in foreign government deposit funds should be used in Venezuela to help create peace, prosperity, and stability. The order was signed on Friday, less than a week after US forces captured Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro in Caracas. Several companies have long-standing claims against the country. ExxonMobil and ConocoPhillips, for example, left Venezuela nearly 20 years ago after their assets were nationalized. Both are still owed billions of dollars. Saturday's order does not mention any specific company. It declares that the money is sovereign property for Venezuela, held in US custody for government and diplomatic purposes, and is not subject to private claims. Political leaders in Greenland have issued a resolute and unified rejections of US President Donald Trump's renewed push to acquire the island, asserting that the territory is not for sale and its future belongs solely to its people. In a joint statement released on 9 January, Greenland Prime Minister Jens Frederik Nielsen and 4 major party leaders condemned the American president's rhetoric. We don't want to be Americans. We don't want to be Danes. We want to be Greenlanders, the statement read. The diplomatic standoffs intensified after US President Donald Trump reiterated his desire to acquire the island, which is also semi-autonomous region that's part of a strategic NATO ally Denmark. Trump framed the potential acquisition as a security necessity, claimed that if the US does not take control, Russia or China will. He further alarmed international observers by suggesting he would pursue the deal the easy way or the hard way, though he did not elaborate on the specific nature of his threats. Tens of thousands of people marched through Minneapolis on Saturday to decry the fatal shooting of a woman by a U.S. immigration agent, part of more than 1,000 rallies planned nationwide this weekend against the federal government's deportation drive. The massive turnout in Minneapolis, despite a wiping cold wind, underscores how the fatal shooting of 37-year-old renegade by an immigration and customs enforcement officer on Wednesday has struck a chord, fueling protests in major cities and some towns. Minnesota's Democratic leaders and the administration of President Donald Trump, a Republican, have offered starkly different accounts of the incident. Led by a team of indigenous Mexican dancers, demonstrators in Minneapolis, which has a metropolitan population of 3.8 million, marched towards the residential street where Good was shot in her car. The boisterous crowd, which the Minneapolis Police Department estimated in the tens of thousands, of chanted Good's name and slogans such as "Abolish ICE" and "No Justice, No Peace" and "Get ICE off our streets." Voters in war-torn Myanmar queued up on Sunday to cast their ballots in the second stage of a military-run election, following low turnout in the initial round of polls that have been widely criticized as a tool to formalize junta rule. Myanmar has been ravaged by conflict since the military ousted a civilian government in a 2021 coup and detained its leader, Nobel Peace Prize winner Aung San Suu Kyi, sparking a civil war that has engulfed large parts of impoverished nation of 51 million peoples. Suu Kyi's National League for Democracy party, which swept the last election in 2020, has been dissolved along with dozens of other anti-junta parties for failing to register for the latest polls, while rebel groups have refused to take part. The United Nations, many Western countries and human rights groups say the election is a shame exercise that is neither free, fair nor credible in the absence of a meaningful opposition. Russia's capital, Moscow, on Friday experienced the heaviest snowfall in 56 years, with 42% of the monthly average precipitation recorded in just 24 hours. The snowstorm that hit central Russia on Friday brought record-breaking snowfall, paralyzing ground and air traffic across the region, said Evgeny Tishkevets, a leading specialist at the Phobos Weather Center, a private weather forecasting service. Moscow's main weather station at the exhibition center of the national economy logged 22 millimeters of precipitation in a single day, equivalent to 42% of the monthly norm. Overnight, the snow eased off with an additional 2 millimeters of light snow falling by morning. Tishkovets said Moscow's international airport reported that over 1 million cubic meters of snow had been cleared from its premises in the past 24 hours. Chinese-Cambodian businessman Shen Ji's arrest and extradition to China this week marked a stunning fail for a young tycoon accused of running a brutal online scam and money laundering operation. At age 27, Shen founded the Prince Group, a Cambodian conglomerate with fingers in everything from real estate to banking and airlines, as well as, according to U.S. prosecutors, cryptocurrency investment fraud schemes that stole billions of dollars from victims worldwide. According to an indictment filed in a Brooklyn court last year, Shen and his top executives grew Prince Group, which operated more than 100 business entities in over 30 countries into one of the largest transnational criminal organizations in Asia. Many of the scam centers used forced labors, according to United Nations investigators. Prince Group has denied wrongdoing. Reuters could not reach Shen Prince Group or their representatives on Thursday.
Have also seized assets related to Shen's group. It is worth noting that this scam mastermind also faces a sentence of 40 years in US if convicted, even as the scores for global scam compounds.
Now sports. Whether Lionel Messi will play in 2026 World Cup remains a question on everyone's mind. Argentina head coach Lionel Scaloni has spoken about the issue several times before, repeatedly saying that the decision rests solely with Messi. Once again, the World Cup winning coach echoed the same stance. Messi himself had earlier told the media that his participation in the 23rd edition of world football's biggest tournament will depend on his form and fitness. The World Cup, jointly hosted by the United States, Canada and Mexico, is set to begin next June. Even with 6 months to go, Scaloni is still unsure whether Messi will feature in the tournament to be held in North America. The Argentina coach is firmly against putting any pressure on his team's biggest star over the issue. Scaloni recently met Messi, where the two discussed various matters. Speaking to Argentine Football Association, Scaloni shed light on those conversations. I sat down and had coffee with Messi. I also want to speak to the others in the squad. With only 6 months left until World Cup, it's important to communicate the overall situation of the team, he said.
Que significa todo lo que es vestir esta camiseta, ha venido a jugar.
Before ending, we go through the headlines again. EU election observers stress inclusive participation in Bangladesh polls, credible turnout of voters for exercising democratic rights. EC hearings restore candidacies of most petitioners. Jatiyo parties Jinnah and Jamaat Azadi return to race. Stray bullet from Myanmar kills 7-year-old girl in Waikong Union Teknaf, says police. You're up to date with our top stories so far here on SATV. And to know the latest news, visit www.satv.tv. Stay with us.